who is the DDG responsible for programs and projects. Of course, next to Mr. Mbele is Minister Mantashe. To the right of Minister Mantashe is Advocate Thabo Mkwena, who is our Director General at the DMRE. The furthest corner to the right is Mr. Bernard Magoro, who is the head of the IPP office. The media briefing is not going to be a very long one. The minister will come over to the podium and read his statement, and then we'll take a Q&A. Minister.
Good evening, members of the media. First, this is your briefing. DG and Team TMR. Ladies and gentlemen, Team TMR include the head of IPP office. Sometimes they want to be independent. So their neutrality is not diluted. Team TMRE, all of us. We have invited you today to announce the outcome of the 5th bid window procurement under Renewable Energy REIPPPP procurement program, also commonly referred to as bid window 5, which we issued the request for proposal in April this year. That is April 2021, and committed to announce the preferred bidders before the end of October. That was the commitment we made when we opened it. Therefore, it is unfortunate that this announcement happens at a time when the country is experiencing load shedding due to unavailability of the Eskom power generation units. Noting that typical grade of the Eskom power typical grade and scale projects have a minimum of about 36 months before they can produce power into the grid. The immediate solution to our electricity challenges lies in getting existing plants to perform in a predictable and stable manner. In other words, sometimes when we're under pressure and we have our discussions, we normally create an impression that if you open up a bid window, this weekend there will be electricity in the grid. It takes up to 36 months for electricity to be in the grid. The reason for that, if you are announced as a winning bidder, you have to construct that capacity of energy. And the lead time is 36 months. Since the promulgation of the first IRP 2011, the DMRE has undertaken a number of programs to supplement the power generation supply from Eskom. To date, we have procured and signed agreements with 93 independent power producer projects, totaling to 7,308 megawatts. 89 of these projects include bid window 4. Which was signed in 2018. Now, the total of these bid windows have already connected to the grid and supply 6,855 megawatts, 6,855 megawatts. Those are already connected to the grid. I'm sure that will actually rectify a mistake that says there have been no megawatts to the grid since whatever. 6,855 megawatts from these supplementary programs are in the grid. And this is equivalent to 2 Eskom 6-pack coal-fired power stations. These include 86 renewable energy projects, 2 diesel-fired big plants, 5 small power plants in the form of hydropower, landfill gas, and biomass. In addition to the projects mentioned, We have selected 11 preferred bidders, totaling to 1,995 megawatts under the risk mitigation REIPPPP. That is, I normally make it easy and say that is emergency procurement of energy. And these preferred bidders are expected to be connected to the grid within 18 months after signing the commercial agreement, currently set for the end of January 2022. The department is also in the process of procuring about 160 megawatts from existing renewable energy IPPs. So in other words, those renewable projects that fell off the race, we are pursuing them to secure that energy for Eskom. Under generation for own use, since 2017, NERSA has registered 438 projects totaling to 206 megawatts. Projects total to 44 megawatts are under consideration. In 2021, NERSA also issued 3 power generation licenses totaling to 59 megawatts. We are yet to see registration application for the last project following the increase in the threshold to 100 megawatts. In other words, the deregulation of embedded generation from 1 megawatt to 100 megawatt. We want to see the results. We have not seen them yet. We're hoping that we're going to see the difference in no time. Going back to what we have gathered here for, the Renewable Energy IPP bid window 5 was released to the market on 12 April 2021 and its first bidding round to be launched under the second section 34 determination that we gazetted. Bid window 5 aimed to produce a total of 2,600 megawatts, which includes 1,600 megawatts from offshore wind and 1,000 megawatts from solar PV plants. So it's a combination of wind and solar. The program attracted a total of 102 bids, with capacity totaling to 9,644 megawatts. Now, the outcome of the evaluation process conducted by the team of independent intersection advisors, overseen by the IPP office, has resulted in the selection of 25 preferred bidder projects, procuring a total of 2,583 megawatts. That means was 17 megawatts of the target of 2,600 megawatts. The weighted average price of the preferred bidders, include both wind and solar, is 473 rand per megawatt per megawatt hour. In other words, weighted average price for wind is 495 rand per megawatt. Let me simplify it because we normally talk of cents per unit. It means it is 47 cents per unit. Now, if you take 47 cents per unit, and that is, and in solar, it is 429 rand per megawatt, which means it is 49 cents per unit. Now, normally, we normally talk of the expensive generation of electricity and normally put unit costs to be higher than the selling price. It happened with bid 1, 2, 3, and to a less extent bid window 4. Now, this is almost close to the solar, to the nuclear unit cost per unit. Kuba gave us is about 40 cents per unit. We're at 47, 49 cents per unit, which means that wind and PV has come down low. It is cheap now. Now, 25 preferred bidder projects will inject a total of private sector investment amounting to 50 billion rand to the South African economy. Preferred bidder projects will further create a total of 13,900 job opportunities. As with all IPP procurement programs to date, the bid window 5 set out a number of key economic development targets, which I'm not going to go through at this point in time, except to explain that this bid window, entity participation is 49.2% against target of 40% by South Africans. I want to repeat this. Participation is 49.2% against the target that we set of 40%. A total of 34% shareholding by black people in IPPs was achieved against the target of 30%. So the DMRE not only requires participation by black South Africans at project level, but also requires participation across the entire renewable energy value chain. So as we develop and roll out, we must begin to see real owners who are South African and who are black, and that process takes its own time, and we're very patient with it. For the first time, we introduced the target of 5% ownership by black women in projects. It is very encouraging that we have already achieved 7% commitment through the bidding round. Now, in an effort to re-stimulate local manufacturing production in the renewable energy value chain, the request for proposal required projects to commit at least 40% local content during construction, which has always been a shortcoming with renewable energy system, that big part of the components are imported, manufactured somewhere else and imported and just assembled on site. So this time we said 40% content during construction, and the preferred bid has committed about 44% local spend during construction. Now, these projects will continue to make a big difference in the lives of not only those communities in the vicinity of the proposed power plants, who will own 2.5% of the preferred bidder projects. The preferred bidders have also committed a total of 2.7 billion towards socio-economic development, enterprise and skills development initiative over the 20 years lifetime of the project. Now, let me give you the names of these projects, because that's where the issue is, and we have some experience about that. I'm not going to get into that, but we have an experience with that, because all goes well until people know who are the bidders who have succeeded. Then they start kicking dust. Coalscope Wind Energy Facility, Sunkral Wind Energy Facility, Pesco Moyo Wind Energy Facility, Brand Valley Wind Farm, Red Kloof Wind Farm, Wolf Wind Farm, Beaufort West Wind Facility, Trackers Wind Facility, Sutherland Wind Facility, Riedrich Wind Facility, Vaihoek Wind Facility, Dwarsrag Wind Facility, Grootfontein PV1, Grootfontein PV2, Grootfontein PV3, Grootspruit Solar PV Projects, Graspan Solar PV Project, Sannerspos Solar PV Project, Duplessis Dam Solar Project, Kentani Solar Facility, Klipfontein Solar Facility, Klipfontein 2 Solar Facility, Lillishoek Solar Facility, Braglachte Solar Facility, Sonoblomo Solar Facility. The department will now pursue financial close within the next 6 months, which is a key milestone for signing the agreements. We want to congratulate all the successful bidders that participated in this bid. We look forward to more competition and reduced price when we issue bid window 6. We're aiming to release bid window 6 not later than the end of January 2022. so that the process of developing capacity is ongoing. Bid windows will also include 1,600 megawatts of the onshore wind and 1,000 megawatts of the solar PV in accordance with the integrated resource plan. We must also highlight the fact that for the first time we had projects among these 25 that are in 2 provinces that never participated before. 7 of them are in the Free State and 1 is in KZN. Those projects never participated in this process. This year we have 2 new provinces participating. We're hoping that more and more provinces will take an interest. Thank you very much. We'll take questions. In answering the question, the whole team will fill the questions. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Minister. We are going to start our Q&A by asking Ishmael to read out any questions that we have received from online. Please, Ishmael.
Thanks, Chairperson. For now, we have one question from Karen Smith, FIN24. Minister, can BW5 actually connect to the grid given the lack of implementation of ESCOM transmission plan? That's all for now, Chair.
Okay. All right. Then we're going to come back to the room. And I see the lady to my right-hand side with her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Kopanogumbi from Newsroom Africa. Quick questions to the Minister. Just on your current announcement of bid window 5, as we sit right now, risk mitigated IPP programs, none of them have reached financial close. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay. Kopanogumbi, Newsroom Africa. Currently, you've announced 25 bidders for bid window 5, but on the risk mitigated program, none of those bidders have reached financial close, and you say it's going to take 36 months for any new power to get onto the grid. So should we anticipate more than 36 months from now, given the current crisis we have at ESCOM? Secondly, your colleague alluded to the fact that the challenges at ESCOM have taken quite a while to get fixed, and that the department might have some role to play in how quickly ESCOM can turn its infrastructure and everything around. If you could please comment on that. Thank you.
Okay. Any other hand in the room? No. Sorry, Ishmael has got somebody.
Thanks, Chair. There are 3 questions from Nokukanya Mtambo from Jacaranda FM News. The first one, the figures announced by Minister Mantashe are all good and well, but can we get a simplified explanation on how this translates to solving the crisis for the ordinary man? How much longer will we be faced with an energy crisis? And what are the timelines to achieving plans of renewable energy? The second one, with the latest developments, is government still on track to reaching its plans to decommission coal plants by 2030? The last question from Jacaranda News, can we get an update on the Cap Power ship tender and the controversy around the company? Thank you.
Thank you. I think those are the questions that we have for now, Minister. If maybe we could respond to them at the podium.
Let me give it a go, and then I think I can close. When there was an announcement of deregulation of embedded generation, and all the analysts and lobbyists were saying that is a solution, we had to remind them that The fact that the President has announced this deregulation doesn't mean that you will have energy the following week. It applies to bid window 5 because all these projects will have to build that capacity. We're estimating the average time to take to connect to 36 months. It may be faster, it may be a little bit longer, but the average time is 36 months. Because you'll have to build a plant, then generate. Now, we talk of bid window winners that have no infrastructure on the ground yet. Until we approve this, then they are going to start setting up a bid window. Now, and the question is, numbers are good, but how long will it will resolve the problem? The resolution of the problem is not primarily dependent on the supplementary program. It is primarily dependent on our ability to correct ESCOM. So ESCOM is operating optimally. At this point in time, if we don't resolve that, we can generate more and more. We can issue bid window 6, we can issue bid window 7, which we'll do in due course. It will not easily close the gap of a monopoly power generator for years. That is not operating optimally. The load shedding that we're having is not because of less connected capacity. It is unavailability of generation capacity. I'm sure, and the Renewable will talk to that we're connected 45 megawatts, but at the best we operate at 33, which means we're not efficient in running existing capacity. Decommissioning of coal plants, are in IRP 19. People must read it. It doesn't say will decommission coal power plants by 2030. It doesn't say so. The Renewable will talk to that because it is systematic. We'll start with 1, 2, 3, and go on. We're not going to decommission coal generating power plants by 2030. For example, the new power stations like Yomidup and Kusile will not be decommissioned by 2030. I think I must stay clear of cap worship, leave it to the technical team to deal with that so that they can be able to avoid legal traps in that issue, because there is a case in court and what you say about it, you must be careful. Lawyers call it sub judice. So you don't talk freely with those because you are going to go to court. Anything you say can be called upon as evidence in court. But I'm leaving the technical team to get into all the outstanding questions. Ngoro, Mbele, Izamagoro.
Thank you, Minister. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to try and address the two questions. The first one from Carol Smith regarding the grid issue. The grid is indeed a challenge, especially in the high-yield areas of the Northern Cape. But as part of the evaluation process, we work together with ESCOM and assess the projects, whether they're able to connect or not. So the projects that have been announced have passed the grid availability, so they will be able to connect on time, but obviously subject to the cost estimate letters, which will then translate into the budget quotations arrangement between the preferred bidder and ESCOM. So that process was concluded between ourselves and ESCOM as part of the evaluation. And I must mention that yes, there were projects that were cheaper, but unfortunately because of the grid constraints that we have, they were not able to go through in this round. And I must also mention that Northern Cape and Western Cape as the grid stands today, it's saturated after bid window 5. There might be a little bit of connection, but that will have to be confirmed by ESCOM once they've looked at all the projects that were announced today. Regarding the car powership issue, I think I like to talk about the risk mitigation preferred bidders and not necessarily single out one preferred bidder. So where we are now, we have announced that the financial close has been extended to not later than end of January 2022. As government, we are pursuing our government approvals. That is the buyer board approval, ESCOM board approval, and other authorizations and the PFMA applications by both ESCOM and the DMRE. And then the case, as we all know, has been postponed after the applicant has asked for a postponement to the end of November, and the hearing is scheduled for the 1st to the 3rd of December. I think that's all I can say about the question regarding the car powership. So I'm not sure if there's any other question that you want me to address. Okay, thank you.
No, thank you and good evening, everyone. I think the questions that I'm going to talk to is more to supplement the responses from the minister. I think he had adequately covered them, but the first question is the one around the timing and if we should expect these projects to solve the problem as in tomorrow. I think as the minister indicated, grid scale projects take time. Actually, the risk mitigation independent power producer procurement program was an urgent procurement that targeted projects that could actually connect to the grid earlier than the normal times. Actually, that was the main reason for us having designed that particular program. It was trying to see if we can get capacity that can be deployed quicker than the standard times. And yes, and unfortunately, the delays that we're experiencing on the program are now impacting on when we expect power. But you will notice that those projects were actually promising to connect power to the grid within 12 to 18 months, which is way shorter than the standard time. In terms of the decommissioning, again, as the minister indicated, the decommissioning schedule is in the IRP, and it's based on what ESCOM had committed as a decommissioning schedule, taking into account the design life of the respective power plants. And there's about 10,000 megawatts of coal power plants that is planned for decommissioning during that period. I think all the other questions Bernard has covered. Thank you.
Okay, Ishmael indicates that we have more questions.
Yes, Chairperson. We have about 9 questions from the journalists. I'll start with a brief from Terence Kramer, Engineering News. Minister, with 9,644 megawatts bid, given the estimated supply deficit of up to 6,000 megawatt estimated by ESCOM, why have you moved to contract for less than 2,600 megawatt allocation? Minister, did you consider going above the allocation given that more bid windows are set to follow in short order? If so, what stopped you from doing so? Why has BW6 been delayed to January from the initial date of September? What is the actual date for financial close for these BW5 projects? We also have 2 questions from Antoinette Slabat from Rapport. How do these prices compare with those of the emergency power program? And is it still worthwhile to proceed with that program? Do you foresee any further projects in the Northern Cape after this round, taking into the grid constraints? And the last set of questions, they are from Aaron Bates from Business Day. What if any vetting has been done? What if any vetting has been done to ensure that the bidders do not have conflict of interest or politically exposed people amongst their investors and or owners? Has the DMRE set a deadline by which financial close must be completed? Will this power be added to the grid bit by bit or in one go in 36 months' time? Since the latest round of load shedding began, has DMRE and the minister played a role in resolving the current power crunch? The last one from Aaron Bates. Since IRP 2019, not a single megawatt has been added to the grid. Do you acknowledge that the process has been very slow? What will you do to speed things up? That's all, Chair. Thank you.
All right.
I'm going. It's better for me to speak first and more refined answer. Let me give you a very measured answer. The bid window 5 is 17 megawatts less than the 2,600. And the reason for that is bidders put round figures, and they offer bids, but Magoro will talk to that. So in other words, it's not a question of less than 2,600. It's where the bids ended up. They ended up 17 megawatts short, which is not a train smash. How do this compare with the emergency procurement? You will answer that question. Now let me talk about this vetting and PEPs. Actually, that question captures the main problem that we are going to have load shedding for a long time in South Africa. In my language, there is an expression that says literally, if you say you only eat chicken, you starve during difficult times. That is the issue with energy procurement, is that there are so many people who do not want this, who want that, and don't care about this because this is what they want. And as a result of that, we run short of what is available because we want chicken. If there is red meat, we rather not eat. And that is going to inhibit our accelerated attempt to actually eliminate the load shedding. And it's a debate that we need politically. I don't know PEPs, who are PEPs, but I don't think there's any political activist who is involved on this. There's no political activist who is involved on this. And I think there are no families of political leaders who are involved in this. I can assure you that there's no Mantasher there. In the coupleship, there was all the attempts to drag Mantasher into it. In reality, that there's no Mantasher there. You look for something you will not find. Will this be connected once there are 25 bid window, 5 winners that have been announced? So they are not in a beauty contest. Every one of them will complete its preparation and connect to the bid. Obviously, they will connect bit by bit as they complete their work as individual ones. I don't understand this, not a single megawatt added. Maybe Mbele will talk to this. Because bid window 4 was signed end of 2018. A big part of that bid window is on the grid now. Big part of that grid is on the grid now, plus a number of megawatts added in the small 1 megawatt procurement program. But I'm going to leave that to Mbele to talk to, because it's a myth that there's no single grid that has been added. Actually, people who are lobbying hard for us to move to renewable energy create confusion in society by trying to pronounce that once you approve a green project, it will be in the grid tomorrow. And the reality of the matter is that they will build the capacity. We are very patient about that. Want them to build that capacity and actually connect it properly and not rush for it. That's where we are. Somebody suggested to me last week, why do you still continue with bid windows when we've deregulated embedded energy from 1 megawatt to 100? I said, but the deregulated part is voluntary. But when you have a government project, at least you can monitor it, you can enforce it. So we can't wait for luck. We must do something and enforce the implementation of programs. But let me leave it to Mbele and Magoro. We will call Mbele this time. Magoro angakubhida angakushikho.
Okay, I'll respond to some of the questions and I'll leave some to Mr. Magoro Bernard. I think let me start with the question that asked how are the prices comparable to the risk mitigation. They are not comparable because these projects provide electricity, but I would say that two different products. And I hope this example makes sense. I was thinking about it because I think one expected this kind of question. You see, in the transport space, you've got trains and you've got buses. The reason you introduce trains to your transport system generally is because you are trying to remove pressure on the bus system. In a way, you've got demand that requires to be serviced in different ways. So for example, the train might be slightly cheaper, but for those that are looking for speed, especially in the morning when they go to work, they are willing to pay the price, or it complements the buses that are there. And those that are not in a hurry, they may want to take the bus to work because the bus is cheaper. So in terms of power system, there is a characteristic to the demand, and different technologies close the gap in different ways. So for example, renewable energy gives you what we call just the energy component. It does not provide you capacity. So in the evening when everybody rushes home to cook and electricity peaks, you're not going to be able to switch on that capacity. And that's why with the REIPPPP, one of the requirements from the system operator, from Eskom, was that it must be dispatchable. So basically there, what you are paying for, you are also paying for the flexibility to be able to switch it on and off when the system requires you to do so, which is a functionality that you do not get with the renewable energy program. So they are not the same product, and therefore they cannot be that easily compared, if I may say that. And then there was a question, and Bernard, you can add on this one as well, around why a delay in bid window 6. I think what needs to be understood is that every time we undertake a bid window, we engage key stakeholders, which is Eskom and National Treasury, because these programs are able to happen because there's an arrangement. Eskom is the one that signs the PPA with the IPP, and part of that PPA is that there must be a fair risk allocation between the IPP and the buyer, which is Eskom. So we undertake these discussions, taking into account the changing environment. So there are engagements along those lines, but equally there are discussions with National Treasury as well that has to stand guarantee behind these projects, that also want to understand what is the risk today compared to where we were with other bid windows. So it's those type of discussions, but it's also because the various parties have their own internal approval processes. Eskom has to take the PPA and to their board for approval before we can go out. So it's not like it's dependent on one party, it's because there's multiple parties, and before you go out, you have to make sure that all the parties agree to what's on the what is being procured, and hence some of these delays or so-called delays that are being experienced. I'll leave the one in terms of why we have not moved to procure more, and I think, Bernard, you can talk to that. But from my side, a simple answer is that the program is built around competition and driving the price down. So if you had to procure the whole determination today, you will get the price today. If you look at the price of renewables, the fact that it's coming down all the time, then you will miss the opportunity to catch the benefit of lower prices in the coming rounds. And I think I was at the Wind Conference about 2 weeks ago, and someone mentioned, actually it's interesting that from the industry, the view is that we need to even be careful about the spacing between the bid windows, because there is not yet enough capacity in terms of cranes and all that to run all these projects concurrently. So there are other considerations or restrictions that come into play. I think the minister touched on the point around when will the power come into the grid bid by bid. Each project will obviously compete at a specified time, but we hoping that many of them can complete earlier to add the necessary energy on the grid. Again, there was a question about the implementation of the IRP. Unfortunately, public procurement processes requires that the processes must be transparent and they must follow prevailing regulations. As an example, the minister cannot implement the IRP without first issuing a Section 34 determination that must be concurred to by the regulator. That's the requirement. And if you get that process wrong, you run the risk of the outcome of whatever process that you're undertaking being challenged. And that's one of the things. I've mentioned the discussions that happen behind the scenes with Eskom and other players in the space. So by the time we go out in public with these documents, there's a lot of work that has to happen behind the scenes, which at times would look like there was probably a delay, people sleeping on the job, but it's because it's work that does not necessarily happen in the public domain. Thank you. I'll leave it here and hand over to Bernard.
Thank you. I think DDG Mbele has addressed most of the question. I'll just add in other areas where I think there could be more information. The first question was around the procurement of less than 2,600. The minister is correct. When we issue the RFP, we have to be specific. Government procurement is highly regulated. So we said we're procuring 2,600. The next project was going to take us beyond the 2,600, which is why we had to stop at 2,583. That also answers the second question as well. Why are we not taking more? Yes, we were oversubscribed. We had over 9,000 megawatts competing for 2,600. But again, for that